time I get to take it off is when I'm in like the break room by myself.
Yeah, that's much better to have it around the head than on the ears all day. Mine always start hurting a little.
I mean, we're socially distant, but we still, according to the order, we have to keep our masks on.
Is anybody in here cold?
Always.
It's on, but
Judge for that.
I can feel the heat when I walked in the door, but I'll leave it open.
No, y'all can turn it down. I'll be fine if I'm the only cold one.
We're gonna suffer through it for you.
Do that.
So we want to make sure that you're. I don't think I went cold.
I'm perfectly comfortable being cold. It's 97% of the time for me.
All right. We're ready, if you're ready. Has everybody already introduced?
I've made some general introductions, but I think it'd still be helpful to go around the room and say who everybody is.
Okay. We have one over here too.
But that's from the last one. I think I was in the one that signed. I guess everybody else is virtual though?
Yeah, I'll write in their names.
Yeah, let's.
And I'll put WebEx on there for my reference.
Okay.
Okay. So Mr. Carrick, am I pronouncing that? Yes, sir. You're the petitioner. Yes, sir. Okay. Joe D. Thompson, is basically the head of the assessor department. He has an assistant, named, no, I'm kidding. He has several assistants, but he also has one boss.
I have an elected official, yes.
And she would tell us both if that means she's the boss.
Yes.
And then Megan Davis is the county attorney who's representing the assessor's office this morning. David?
Nice to meet you.
And Adam Fogelman is the county attorney, and he's clerking for me today. And then Doug Porto is from the clerk's office, and it's his job to record everything, make sure that there's a legal record accurate. Yeah. All right, so let's convene and get started on this case. Everyone's been properly introduced, and so Mr. Carrick would be. Well, let me stand by. I have to get one. So we're only going to have two witnesses. That's going to be Joe D. and Mr. Carrick. Mr. Del Pardo, will you please swear the witnesses?
Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Joe Thompson,
Do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, gentlemen. So now, Mr. Carrick, it puts us in a place where you're up to bat first. And just to review kind of quickly, you'll make the presentation of your petition. Ms. Davis will have the opportunity to question you or ask you any questions she may have. When you're finished with that, then she will leave Mr. Thompson or make the assessor's point in this case. And then when they're done, then you'll have an opportunity to ask them questions if you would like, and then you will each have the opportunity to close. Make sense?
I do.
So it's your turn. You're on.
Okay. As stated, my name is Cal Carrick, and I guess I'm talking to you, the judge. My name is Cal Carrick, and I had an issue with my property assessment sheet. And it started back in 2018. And it's continuing up until this day. And I thought about how I would present myself to present the case, and it's kind of like long, all these documents. I really don't want to go through them all. I really don't want to see you hear them all. And they're
Thank you for that.
unnecessary unless there's questions. I can go back and I can get the date and I get the document. So I'm going to talk and I'm
going to assume that this is multiple, this personal property and it's multiple vehicles, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so I'm going to assume that your explanation or your concern or complaint is generally the same for each vehicle.
Exactly.
So I don't think unless my clerk here tells me that I've got to do something different, I don't think you've got to go through each vehicle. It's listed and we are considering today the situation concerning all these vehicles.
I think so long as the complaint is regarding the underlying process, then that's true. If it's specific, fact specific to each vehicle and so long as we identify what your opinion of value is, then we'll have the information we need. But certainly want you to be able to present your case.
And so we'll go forward and if there's some questions, we're going to ask. Sound good?
Yeah, I'm glad it's fogging up.
That's the thing with these maps.
I told several people today, it's
Yeah.
2020, ain't nothing working right this year. We're just gonna tough it out and we'll get to next year.
I can agree with that. This is, I think I have like about 26 items on here, car. And as you can see, these are old cars, mostly old cars. I kind of collect them and I play around with them. And it's just my leisure pursuit. Absolutely no, it came up in past, a meeting that I'm running a business and I told the guy, you're the state and you're the assessor, you can just actually look up the VIN to see if I'm trading. And I'm not. So this is just my personal leisure pursuit. I first noticed in 2018, I had two assessments in my hand. The one I'm going to pay for and the one I had last year. And I looked at the numbers on the values. One of the vehicles was 325% more than last year. It's an old vehicle. And it was actually 2002 Cadillac still on it. And I was wondering what that was. I had been assessing for 40 to 45 years. So I've never really brought any complaint the whole time. And I think I do what everybody else does. And they think that it's right and make the number relatively small so they don't worry about it. They just pay it and just move on. But I just couldn't quite understand what this 325% increase was. So I went to the county assessor's office on October 14th. I had in my hand a Freedom of Information Act I have here. And we had discussed, half the people didn't know what I was talking about. And some people that did, they didn't have the answers. So I left the Freedom of Information request with them. And I'm gonna.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine.
I'll make a long story short. I had been forever since that day trying to get what these numbers represent. That they put on it, they put on it. You have my written numbers. And I've been trying to get what they put on there. Even until this year.
So
And this-
let me ask you a question. You said this started October 14th of this year or of last year? Is that when you came to see the assessor? Was this year in October?
2018,
So 2 years.
2 years.
Okay, all right,
I was going for 3 years.
all right.
And I'm gonna kind of fast forward. Oh, but I do want to do this. I had a problem with my last meetings. This is what my basic understanding of what the law is. The premise that I'm operating on. The duty of the assessor is to assess. 20-16-105. Duty of the owner is to list. 26-16-903. And I want to get this in the record. That this is what I'm referring to when I talk. The duty of the assessment coordination department is to coordinate 20-20-19-11. Evaluations. When you go to evaluate the price of a car, there are statutes that dictate it. 26-27-203, 26-26-303, 26-2108, 26-26-1202, ACD rules and regs of Arkansas Constitution, Article 16, Section 5. And when you do these evaluations, you're going to come up into equity, balance to have it equal throughout the state. This is the job of the ACD with the assessor. 22, 20-2104, 20-23202, Arkansas Constitution, Article 16 and Section 5, and ADC rules. It is to provide equal and uniformity throughout the state. This is what I'm operating on. A lot of people didn't understand that in past meetings, so I just want to get that out there on the record. If you have any questions, ask me. So I have, when I had the freedom of information that from the county assessor, they didn't have anything that showed me what these numbers were. Instead, they reflected to ACD, Arkansas Assessment Coordinator. So I gave a freedom of information back to Barry Cheney, Director of Arkansas Assessment Coordinator, on the 16th of October. In turn, I talked to Steve Sutterfield for a while. I'm going to go to his name in a minute. And we discussed, and I believe they knew that this was a problem. Now, that's my belief. What I'm basing it on was my conversation with Steve Sutterfield. And when he gave me the information from my freedom of information act to him, he gave me an email that went to, now, actually, we discussed this, me and Steve Sutterfield. I believe that from our discussion, this was in October of 2018. ADC put out an email in January of 2019 to all 75 counties. I think reminding them that the assessor assessed, Rule 1, and ADC does not assess. I have the email here. All 75 counties and Janet Ward is included by the assessor. So I'm on start now. February 5th, 2019, after I was given this email, just the next month, after I was given this email, I was not satisfied with what Steve Sutterfield said fully, and he knew it, and he didn't have the answers. I gave a subsequent freedom of information request back to ask for explanations. I'll just list it, just talk about what I listed. I asked for specific instructions given to the assessors governing the proper use of the database that they provide. I asked the date and the time that these instructions were given, and I asked a copy in our rules. Well, there's a true market value. I was trying to get at what did ADC tell the assessors, because I knew that there was numbers from my assessment were wrong, and that they was providing them, and everybody was saying it. So, and ADC was saying that they did it right. So why the numbers wrong? So must have been something there of the instruction that somebody that didn't hear or didn't know. Anyway, as time goes on, I have to go to the BOE, and I went to there. Now, I went to the Board of Equalization on 26th of August of 2019. And I had gone to the assessor, I had gone to ACD. We think there was a problem. I think they knew it. I think the assessor knows it. But the BOE, they didn't really follow the law. They kind of go with their gut and instinct, but I kept trying to say, you need to follow the law, and he decided against me. That was August 26th. August 27th, the next day, I'm at home. And I turned on the TV, I was watching the TV, Channel 7, KATV. And I think it was a 6 o'clock report. And I taped it because the evening news, it comes on at 5 and then also at 6. I heard something on the 5 o'clock news, but I said, did I hear that right? I'm gonna tape it at 6 o'clock. And I put it on a flash drive, put it in a special place that I lost. I'm still hunting it, but this is public information and this is in a broadcast. And I had listened to that recording just to make sure that I'm hearing it right. And I took some notes on it. And this was Chris May was the anchor at the desk. He said, quote, "There is big news tonight. Big news tonight." And I just got a little bit of, I didn't get it verbatim. I just put the notes that I can remind of myself. He said, I think it was pay more taxes. The county assessors were duped. The county assessors were duped. They mentioned something about Saline County, 52,000, Washington County, 84,000. And the reporter, and he switched over to the reporter, which was Maureen Gisovic, the reporter. She said that there's going to be an increase from $200 to $100, not technically an increase. There was a third party underestimated for 2019 or in 2019. And she referred to Scott Harden. He was on TV in his office because I was in his office. He said that the DFA confirmed the mistake this month was in August of 2019. Scott Harden said this was the first time an issue was like this, and we provided services to save time and money. When I heard this, I knew there were lots. That's be polite about it. The assessors were duped, that was a lie. I knew what they were talking about. I had been studying this issue before. And that the increase, that was a lie. It gets kind of complicated, but they were playing with the numbers. At this time, they had the ACD was provided the counties with a vendor called Price Digest. They gave that to me in the information request. They gave me a bunch of superfluous information too, but this is a few little terms in there.
Right.
But there's another page that says a Price Digest. So I looked it up online, and there is a Price Digest. They sell information, cars, tanks, trucks, trailers. They sell it to governments and other people who know that, are going to buy it, or you need a contract with them, and then they'll give you numbers. But what Price Digest does, and they say it, they give you their default number. Their default number. Because they have a highs and lows about the 5 categories: excellent, very good, good. Default is very good, poor, and just cars. They tell their customers they are having the default price. ACD knew that. Steve Sutfield knew that. He gave me documents. I'm not going to talk about that. He gave me documents that shows it. And his written, it's a handwritten statement on the document said these are recommendations only to the assessors. And that email backs it up. So when I went to the assessor's office to say, hey, well, I've got a lot of court cases here, but and I did write you a letter when I missed the court. You probably got that. But anyway, I make a long story short. I've been going round and round with the assessor, with the ACD. They were kind of pointing fingers. I believe the assessors more, I believe the ACD more than I believe the assessors because of their email. They said it. And rule number one, the assessor assesses. And in a nutshell, they're trying to wiggle around these vehicle prices because they don't have a system in condition. Every one of the contractors, Price Digest, NADA, like they have now, Kelly Blue Book, Price.com, and they all do it the same way. They have a range of prices, not just the middle price, they have a range of prices. And that's the discrepancy of the prices that are on there now. And I'm gonna skip up a little bit. And I was just like a cop coming up to the scene of the accident. I can see the carnage, I can see the parts all on the street. I want to know what happened. I can see something wrong. I don't know what happened. I'm gonna have to go to witnesses and who that was. That's what I was doing. I could see the numbers were wrong. I want to know what happened. And I really got to run around with this. This is just one of them. This month, October 2020, it's in my last, I sent a Freedom of Information Act to ACD. It's not Bert Cheney anymore. It's Ms. Crowder, Sandy Crowder, asking for these numbers. They got Steve Sutterfield involved in this, and he sent me this last answer. And he's emphatic that ACD does not provide these minimums that you see in my assessment of 120, all the way down to like 120. They do not provide. The assessors have been saying the ACD provides it. I need to get with them. And the ACD says, well, we don't provide that. And he made it hard in this freedom of information request. I actually had to get the director involved, Mr. Larry Walter, but Department of Finance for a related issue to this. So the long story short, as we sit here, they have not come clean on where these numbers come from. As I have gathered, these are minimums supposed to be the salvage value of a car. And they even said in a sworn testimony, there were state minimums in the first BOE. And some guy rised up and said, no, they're not the state, they are we state. And in the second BOE, under sworn testimony, just like we did swear today, they said again it was ACD. And this was in October, right? And so this year, 2020, they're still saying the same thing. If I send my Freedom of Information Act today, they would say the same thing. And this is not the case at all. So two things. When the cars are valued that are not scrapped, they value at a clean NADA book value, whether it's running or not. Law doesn't say that. They took too much on to themselves and put themselves in front of the law because it's difficult. I agree, you can't go and see all cars. I understand that. But you can't jack up the price on people that are not that high level of car. What we had in 2019 with Price Digest, with them getting a default for all the assessments, rich people with good cars are paying less taxes than they should. People with bad cars paying more taxes than they should. If all the assessors were doing this, it is throughout the state. I think that ruffles some feathers. I didn't know about this until I started digging. And this is what I came up with. Now, I think that the assessed values on the so-called minimum cars should be $30. They got 120. Now, on the sworn testimony, I think it was Mr. Joe Thompson, I don't want to misquote it. On the sworn testimony, he said that he done some research and that he came up with the minimum price for salvage is 200 or 250.
And I am gonna have to object, we're quoting a witness who's here who we can hear speak in a little bit.
Okay. And you can also hear me on tape. Had a tape. So by his own admission, they know these numbers are wrong for probably thousands of taxpayers. That's an own admission on oath. When you have the 120 number times 5, that's 600. His testimony it should be 200. That's 300 times higher than the testimony showed that it should be. But you got to be wrong. I mean, they've admitted it. And for the values on the rest of the values, I took their number because it's not their number, it's the price of the NADA number. But I've adjusted like NADA says. If you, I'll just throw this out there and I'm just about done. So you can ask me questions. If you look at the NADA guide instructions of the terms of service, they're saying that you cannot modify their service. You cannot make it something that is not designed to do. There may be a legal argument to that, but that's in their terms of service. When they say that there's some sort of condition in this price, they mean there's some sort of condition in this price. They don't mean you put this price in no condition. That is a misuse of their service and they don't allow it. Well, it's not authorized. That's what they're doing. And it probably, I understand the difficulty in their job, and I told him he's one of those guys that, but you just can't make up your own rules, just do what you want. Let's see if I suggest that there's a solution for this. And when you have, everybody goes to assess at the time of assessment. I don't have my sheet ready, but I did a screenshot of my assessment. They list all my cars and I have to go through, let me check it's active or something. Anyway, there's a block for each car and there's an area in the block that says status that's active. There are big blocks. You could just say condition. And it's up to the taxpayer to put the condition up there. And you need to publish the condition by the way, so that people will know for like the next tax season. And system would be almost perfect. But you can't just slap a number on there and say, here, pay this. And don't ask questions. And that's basically it. So maybe you guys got questions, but that's basically it. And I do have my list of actual numbers that I've adjusted from NADA. And I didn't write the 30, there were so many. So the ones that are not are the so-called salvage car. Salvage is kind of like a misnomer. And maybe they'll bring it up, but salvage in this case is a misnomer. There's more than one definition of salvage, particularly when it comes to taxes. I understand it, and I'm not a lawyer, but I understand if I'm a buyer and I'm buying a product from a guy who's manufacturing it, if I go build up and I can't buy, that kind of avoids the contract. So this guy had a stockpile of inventory. Well, as I understand, a uniform code of, a commercial code says, in that case, that supplier can actually look for another buyer, or he can turn it into his inventory that he's stuck with now into salvage. And he can salvage that. And that way, he can like move on, because he can't. This is the same way with taxes, the same theory. It's not a salvage, it's a way to get ready capital. Because you have, you need a ready money. This is the law on valuation 26/1202. Usual selling price at the time of listing. Actually obtain money. And salvage is just the default. It could be something else. It could be like a lady playing roads on old cars and just sitting on it. And she bought a car for $1,000. Any car you want to bring. Well, then I can get $1,000 for that salvage car. But it's not exactly useless. Those new parts that manufacturer makes, it's not exactly useless, but he has to get rid of it. And he writes it off on depreciation taxes. That's my understanding. This is why the salvage thing comes up. It's just a way to ready money when cars are not just useless. I'm not saying my car is useless. Well, I could probably say that because I don't really operate on that much, but these are projects in the future. Just like the manufacturer. He can wait and get a partner in a sales, but it could be 2 years, 3 years, 4. He doesn't have to wait that long. The issue is now ready to depreciate on this year's tax return. And as I understand, UCC allows it. That's some sort of example of salvage where it's not really salvage. And that's why I take these cars out. And this is not the only state that does it, has its memos. But thanks for that talk.
So let me intervene here. It sounds like maybe the main reason you're here is to point out the inequity of how these vehicles, these aged vehicles, are being assessed statewide.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you that I appreciate your explanation. I think I understand. But I don't have the authority in my court to do anything about what DFNA and coordinating assessment coordinators are doing. I only have authority to make decisions on the actual assessment. So now, in terms of hey, this isn't fair. And it's not unfair just to me. There's probably a lot of people out there this is unfair to. I would suggest that you talk to your state representative or your state senator, explain this to them. Hey, y'all need to, appropriate, pass law, whatever you need to do, to get them to find a more equitable solution, or, make the taxpayer list, make a statement of what the condition of the vehicle is so that, it can be properly assessed. So in terms of what I can do for you is consider what the assessments are. And you were referring to a document, I think I saw there, where you had looked them up by their condition in NEDA, in ADA, or one of the other services. And so I was going to ask, do I have that document?
Yes.
I do now. Is this your only one?
No, I haven't. Another.
Okay, and so the ones that are 120, which I guess the minimum, you accept that that's probably the value, or you're?
No, because the 120 is $600, and you can't get that much of salvage.
Oh, that's value, not the appraised value. That's correct. Okay. And so even these then that you, for this, like this Roadmaster here, they listed the value of 316, you put 226.
Correct. So
you're still, you did the calculation, arrived at 226 being the assessed value, not the appraised value.
Well,
because to get to the appraised value, you'd have to multiply that 226 times five.
Five, correct.
Okay, all right.
And just as a general objection, I didn't get a copy of this prior to this hearing in accordance with your order, so I haven't gotten to see that or go through it with my witness or anything.
And it's so noted.
You mean to run or make a copy of that? Get it. Jody, do you need to reference this in your testimony?
I don't know because I don't know what I'm going to be asked. I mean, if someone can email it to me, then that would be great.
I'll run and make a copy and get it scanned.
Okay, then we'll get to that. Okay. So what I'm trying to get to is, is trying to make sure that I understand what your request is. I think your complaint about how the system's been working. And I think your best effort of relief of that is going to be in your elected representative. Because you're not going to sue in a circuit court because you're going to have to go hire lawyers and it's going to cost you a fortune to do that. But to bring this to the attention and explain it to your elected representative, they might be able to give you some help. And I also understand why the state, elects this service and so forth. But in today's electronic world, if the vehicle owner classified the condition of the vehicle and they defined in the document what are the 5 levels of condition, their computers could be easily, I think, programmed to give the according value.
Just one more block.
Right. So that's a separate. The explanation helps me understand where we're at, but that's not really where we're at for this proceeding. Because that I'm not going to correct the state in what they're doing or change the guidelines or the rules that the assessor has, because I don't have that authority. But what I do want to do that's Southern speak there, is trying to understand your specific complaint and how you've been wrong.
Well, I guess
And that's what I'm assuming I'm looking at right here.
it boils down to this. I would say the ones I left blank, they were 30. Should be 30 on this page, and the other numbers speak for themselves.
Okay. So.
And I'll go. Yeah, it should tell you what this 30 comes from. I grade the average weight of a vehicle, and I was generous. I rate the average weight of the vehicles as 4,000 pounds. Some weigh maybe that, just a little more, most weigh less. So I didn't want to, this put them 369 pound point line. Now, I just read all the 4,000 pounds, said no arguing about the weight.
See, now you're talking like the state.
Thank you.
I get it. Now you understand how they got to where they're at.
I know, but I called Tannenbaum today, this morning. It's currently 5 cents, $5 a hundred, which is 5 cents a pound. The gross scrap, I'm calling it gross scrap, is going to be $200 for a 4,000 pound car. I took the $200 and all my cars that I would put in that category are not running. Yeah, cars are running. I got like 5 cars running, and that's the one that I have license, tag, and insurance. No other car is licensed, well, just my trailer. No other car is licensed, tag, or insurance on the public roads. No other car. And I state that because some states don't even charge you property tax if you don't drive. Like California got a VLF, vehicle license fee. They got rid of vehicle assessments in 1939. Model A's were still on the road. Anyway, enough history. On the scrap, I subtracted from $200, $50. You got to tow. People are in business for towing. So I come up with $150. And I think that was generous because I left the top tires and the gas tank on. but you have to take them off. And that's weight, so. And to come up with, divide 150 by 5, it's $30. So I just want you to know, but not 120, which is multiplied by 5 is 600. You can't get that, no way from a scrapper, no way. It's wrong on everybody's. Even wrong in, it's a testimony.
Okay.
I'm not picking on you, Joe, but yeah, you said it. You said it, not me.
I'm gonna recess for 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Can you stand by, Joe, D?
Oh, absolutely, yes, sir.
Any objection to that?
Nope.
During that recess, do you want me to?
I want to talk to you during that
Okay.
recess.
Okay.
And I am warm now.
Here, there's restroom is right out here, this lobby, on the far side of that lobby if you need it. And we'll reconvene here in 5 minutes. It's 4 minutes till, so we'll a minute or two past 4 o'clock.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, I'm plenty warm, so I know everybody else has to be warm, but I have no idea how to turn this thing down.
And in the conference room, while everyone had stepped away, I had gone ahead and muted everything. There should be a button to unmute the conference room. Perfect. All right, we're good. Thank you. Sorry for that little hiccup there. I just figured it'd be best to mute it while everyone was away and on their break.
If you only make me
Right,
push the
thank you.
button, I can handle it. Anything more than that's gonna get too tech complicated for me probably.
All right, glad I could keep it simple.
Okay, we're back on the record. And proceeding, Mr. Carrick has completed his case, and Ms. Davis, sorry about that, I couldn't get that off my tongue. Ms. Davis, do you have questions for Mr. Carrick?
I do have some questions. I also have just a general inquiry that is kind of out of the ordinary. Something that was said today is that some of these cars are not running. That was something the assessor's office has before today not been aware of, which raised some questions from Jody's standpoint as to more questions as to from the value. So my question is that if it would be okay with Mr. Carrick and the court to allow Jody to ask the witness some questions, because we may have changes.
That's fine. I'm going to ask two questions first,
Okay.
and probably going to be ones that Jody would have asked. You made the statement that only 5 of these vehicles operated.
Yes.
And I'm going to assume it's probably the 5 with the highest value you've listed here or somewhere around there. Well, I'm assuming your primary vehicle is the 2005 Dodge Ram.
No, that's,
Yes.
Yeah.
yes. So my primary vehicle, the one I drive most is the one I got sitting outside right now. 2092 Chevy truck.
Okay, it's on here. Okay. So,
This is right here.
so are these, so we would say that those 5 vehicles that are licensed and insured, they're daily drivers.
No. I'm afraid so. I got to attribute the March 5 Lincoln that is tagged and licensed. It's not running, but I keep it tagged and everything because I want to keep the license plate.
Okay, well, that may get you in some trouble later, but okay.
Okay.
Have you removed any parts from any of these vehicles and sold them in the last 5 years?
Never in probably the last 20 years.
Thank you.
I'm not in that business.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to settle that. And, Ms. Davis, you and your client are free to rebut.
Okay, and as I mentioned, if it's okay, because like I said, there's just information that came up today that the assessor wasn't aware of. So we do have some more questions that may result in something with value. And so if it's all right with everyone, I think it would be more efficient if Jody led that line of questioning, to save everybody time, if that's okay.
And just a point of order, Jody, you should be receiving an email with a copy of the personal property assessment with the handwritten values on it.
I received it as we were speaking.
Very good.
Thank you.
And while you're reviewing that, I do have just a couple of questions. One of which is, where are these vehicles located? Are they within city limits or outside of city limits?
Yes.
They're inside city limits?
I have some in my house and some at a field. Fields. They just sit down in the field.
But that's also within city limits?
Yes. All in the.
And then my other question is, and we found out that some aren't running today. Is there, in any of the other hearings you talked about being in BOE and coming and doing a couple different things, have you ever presented any information with regard to the condition of these vehicles before?
I've said they were not running.
Okay.
I've said that many times. I wish you had known that this question was going to come up. I would go into taping and see what it said. But I've said it many times. They're just not running.
Okay.
And I think I said some of them don't have the engine in them or parts. Some of them don't have tires on them.
And now I'm not sure how much time the court wants to spend, but from a standpoint of value, to prove true and correct value for each of these, it's really gonna be us going through every car and talking about it.
And so, Counselor, you do what you think you need to do.
Well, if I may interject, I thought, and this could cover most of it, I thought I heard something or say something that if it's like 10 or 20 years old, they just bottomed out.
That is a Jody question. I'm not sure about that. So Jody, if you're ready to take over and ask the questions you need to know with
Okay,
regard to.
may I, and it would be a bit of out of order, but may I make just a small statement before I ask any questions?
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, it is our duty to assess, and part of assessing is establishing market value. We have to look at the definition of market value, and that is the value of something, whether it be a house or a vehicle, that has been exposed to the market for a period of time between a willing buyer and willing seller. We kind of know what that is. Taking it to the guy who sells metal may not be simply market value. One of the questions I do want to know about, and Judge, you kind of went there, is do these vehicles have value in their parts? Some of these, even if they're not running, and as I look over the assessment, many of these vehicles are the same, very similar years, very similar makes, very similar models, leads me to believe that they're being kept for parts or for something. I don't know, but it does lead me to believe that. So one of my first questions would be, do these vehicles have any values in their parts? And which ones do not?
That's for you. Yes, I do have some vehicles and I use them for parts, and they're parts cars. They're parts cars that are described in state of Arkansas law for the storage of collector cars. There's a definition of parts cars. They are those definition cars that I use for parts, which you cannot get any place else.
So that theoretically they do have value.
Not necessarily in the open market. The value is not to, as I understand, it's not to a particular market tier when you're talking tax valuation of vehicles. It's the true market value and actual value which can be obtained at the time of listing. That's why I read these laws before I started, because this comes all the time. I'm following the law, and I wish everybody would.
Well, and I don't have that statute in front of me. Perhaps one of you could reread it to me. I'm not aware of a definition of market value that requires an instant sale, which is basically if you're saying that I need to take this to trade it in, and that's how much they're going to give me, and that's what it's worth. That is not necessarily the definition of market value. When we look at market value on a vehicle, we try to look at what it would sell for between buyers who are not dealers. So if I'm going to sell my vehicle to Megan, then we're going to discuss and negotiate on that, as opposed to a dealer who probably has more knowledge, because knowledge is part of the definition of market value, is everybody being the same amount of knowledgeable. I do want to back up with regard to what we use the word salvage, and 120 is not our salvage value. Our salvage value is 50. Mr. Carrick is saying 30. We're not very far off there if some of these are indeed salvage. It's just we've never had an opportunity to sit down and say, and perhaps the best thing here would be for you to simply, y'all are the attorneys, give me the word. Give us 3 days to sit down with him and say, well, this one are clearly, there is no question as to no, we all think those are salvage. Or we can do that individually. I don't care.
So, thank you, Jody. And I'm sorry, we're gonna get a little reverb here now for some reason, but, so you're offering at the assessor's office to sit down with Mr. Carrick and examine these cars, or you'd examine them and then make a proposal to him of, hey, looks like, if these are not running and don't even have a motor and so on and so forth, this is the value we think should have been on this, and this one over here is something, and this is the value we think should be on that, and see if y'all can come to an agreement.
Certainly. I don't know that it would, I don't know that we can reach agreement on, I think there are 24 or 25 items on here. I don't know that we'll reach agreement on every one of them, but especially.
And I'm not asking you if you're committing to make an agreement on everyone or anyone. I'm asking.
I suspect some of them we can. Yes.
Okay. Then great. Unless there's an objection, I'm going to recess this hearing until Monday or Tuesday. We'll provide a time to both parties of when we can reconvene, and I'm going to assume, Mr. Carrick, that you're available and will make yourself available to the assessor's office to provide information on these vehicles so that they can try and take a closer look at each one. And Joe D, that y'all can also have the time available. You can try and work this out.
Yes, sir. I happen to have entire next week off, but I will make people available to have those discussions with Mr. Carrick to make sure that at least on the ones that are not running for whatever reason. I mean, there's a difference in not running because it doesn't have a fuel pump and not running because it doesn't have a transmission. So
or not running because it's 30 years old and it's been sitting in a field rusting for 25.
Certainly. And there I would probably say that's zero. I mean, if I know that, I'm going to say that has no value and take that off.
Okay. All right.
So we need to know what these vehicles are. Up until this point, the discussions have always been more about ACD says this, you do this. And so we've never gotten down into these 25 individual vehicles.
Well, so the authority of this court is really just this issue.
Yes.
And so everybody's got an opinion, and I appreciate that and I value that. But I'm going to need y'all to keep your conversation just to these vehicles and this value. The other issues are valid issues. They're just not. This isn't the playing field for those issues. So, Joe D, when I talk about recessing until Monday or Tuesday, that doesn't sound like it's giving you enough time.
Well, I think it probably does. I can certainly have somebody meet him Monday, and I don't imagine this is going to take more than, if it were a Monday afternoon hearing, I think it would be fine. If we could meet with him, are you available Monday morning would be the question.
I think Monday, but I haven't really checked my schedule. But I do want to get some comment on the record there before we adjourn. We're going to have to come up with standardization. There are thousands of these.
And Mr. Carrick, that's where I'm speaking, that I can't give you relief in that.
What?
And so I'm glad to help you ascertain who your state representatives are, because I think that's going to be the place that you may be able to apply some pressure to DF&A to take a new look at this as to how they may have a more efficient and equitable process.
That's what I was getting at.
And I would like to point out, if I may, that Mr. Carrick is very correct in that ACD simply advises. In 19, ACD and all of what he's speaking about that happened on the news, ACD sent out vehicle values that were wrong. In Pulaski County, we recognized that within 2 weeks and chose not to use them and went and bought, well, we didn't buy, we went and developed our own for 19. The values that were on the news. That did not affect Pulaski County because we recognized that quickly. I can, if required, I don't think it's the jurisdiction of this court. I can find a letter from me to assessment coordination saying we're not using your values. And they said, okay. So we chose not to do that because we knew they were wrong. We recognize they are recommendations, but they are a starting point unless they are wholly wrong like they were in 19. That they are a starting point and we work from there. So I don't know that there will ever be a standardization as this car is this much every time. The taxpayer has to tell us that there's something unique about that vehicle to open that discussion so that we can then deviate from what that recommendation is.
So I'm going to come back to this court doesn't have the authority to deal with the process. I just don't. My authority is to try to attempt to find, in the opinion of the court, what the fair and reasonable value or assessed value or appraised value of property is. That's the extent of my authority. And so I want to try, I think that we can resolve this for this particular case. And if y'all can do it that quickly, great. Are you think you'll be available on Monday morning?
I believe so.
Oh,
At least.
okay. And Joe, do you think y'all can resolve this in several hours where by the end of the day you have it wrapped up?
I think so, sir.
Okay, and y'all will stay in touch with my clerk, county attorney, Mr. Fogelman, to let him know about your progress, and that'll determine how we move forward.
Yes, I mean, we may well reach a resolution where we just agree to something and you can issue the order, an agreed upon order.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you for your cooperation. And Mr. Chair, you know, unless you object, I'm assuming that you're willing to pursue this, and we're all well aware that this isn't a one size fits all. That's really what you're saying. It's about that dang simple. And although there was probably the day in the past where there wasn't a reasonable way that efficiently, in terms of how much it would cost to assess every vehicle, the state or the counties could do that. From a technology standpoint and a little bit more insight of just asking, you know, the owner to make a statement in writing of, you know, what's the condition of the vehicle, which would allow them maybe to find a database that allows that to go in and be a little more accurate, hopefully a lot more accurate. And so I appreciate, you know, your many hours of work. If we resolve this for you, you're not going to have anything to do. That's what the problem is. So unless there's an objection, I'm going to recess this proceeding until Monday or Tuesday. We'll advise by Monday morning everyone of what that reconvene date and time will be. And in the meantime, hopefully y'all can get together and find something that meets the obligation of the county and is fair and reasonable to our citizens. Okay.
Very good. Megan, would you get his contact information so that I can relay it to someone in order to help him on Monday?
Okay.
Thank you.
I will.
Okay, we're recessed.
Mr. Carrot, can I get a good phone number?
Mhm.